Welcome to Reading the Green and our golf DFS show. My name is Mike with Kyle. Jordan out sick. Kyle, I'll start the night off with a question for you. How many guys in this year's match play field have you played a heads-up match against?
So I blacked out and don't fully remember all of it, but I think maybe Andrew Putnam and I had a putt off one time. Come on, Mike. No.
I only ask because I was this close to getting my wife to come on this year, because last year she wouldn't do it, but this year to get her to come on and tell her story when she played Tom Hoagie heads up in a 9-hole match.
I don't think any of our listeners or anyone that knows you have ever heard that story. I'm enthralled.
I just feel like it's appropriate to bring it up year after year, because what better insight do we have to someone playing in the field this week around what they're like to play a match against?
And she halved a hole, right?
She'll tell you that she lost 5 and 4. Oh, did I already say it was a 9-hole match? Yeah, she lost 5 and 4.
I thought it was 4 and 4.
No, it was I think she was maybe 12 years old and he was 9 years old, and it was this deal where they had this 9-hole match play tournament, a boys division and a girls division, and the next year they had the champions of the boys division and the girls division face off in the first round of a co-ed bracket. And then she got dusted by a 9-year-old Tom Hoagie. So there you go. So I'll start off. I like Tom Hoagie this week.
I don't think you're alone there. Call me crazy.
All right. Well, we're going to turn the show upside down today. We're going to start with the match play talk because we know that this is coming out. We're coming out late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, right when the tournament is starting. So for any of you that are listening and building at the same time, we're going to talk about the match play first. Then we'll rewind and talk a little bit about the Valspar and whatever else is on our mind. So Kyle, this is the last year of the match play, or is as we know it. Who knows? This will probably come back in a couple of years, but what are you gonna miss?
Well, I hope this isn't not the last year. I hope it is. I love the concept of a traveling match play. I think I've heard that. Well, I guess I don't know if I've heard traveling match play mentioned, but bringing the match play to some of the big name courses. And I think Austin Country Club is actually perfect for it. We've talked about that in some of our favorite events to go do. This would be great. But I like the change up. I like especially as a DFS betting centric individual, I like the different strategy that goes into it. So I think it's a fun little difference, and I really hope they find a way to fit it on the schedule next year. Give us match play at Pebble, and then like Bethpage Black. Like, let's just move it around. Let's go.
I will say there's something about a good match play course, and it's one that rewards lots of different skill sets, and that's what allows you. I think Austin Country Club does that, right? Like you can hit it long at this course. There's a couple of really cool holes where guys are hitting almost 400-yard drives, but you've also seen a bunch of shorter players do well here, like Kevin Kisner, and that's because you mix in some drivable par fours. You mixed in some layups, you mix in some rolling out fairways, and like suddenly anybody can play anybody. And in my experience, the most fun I've had playing match play has been on courses where there's lots of risk reward and lots of strategy. So I think you're right. Traveling would be fun because you could go around the country and find some courses that maybe aren't a US Open test, but would be a really fun match play course.
Can't say I've ever played match play, so I'll take your word for it. But it all makes sense.
So let's start a little bit with strategy. So we're talking DFS. We can also talk Rainmakers because Kyle and I are just trucking along in in DraftKings Rainmakers. I can't stop buying players that I think are nicely priced, which I've dug myself a nice investment hole that I'm going to have to dig out of. But I'm excited for that. That's exciting for the rest of the season here. We're only 2 events in.
Yeah, I think all of us have gone a little deeper than we've hoped, but I'm starting to sell some cards at pretty good profits. So that's our little Rainmakers tidbit. We'll save the rest of that for as we go on. So, Mike, how about you? You cue us up from a cash game strategy from the, like, I guess, standard Rick Run Good pitch standpoint.
Well, the Rick Run Good pitch, and I did listen to his pod this morning. I came in hot from Florida the last week, and I was on a jog this morning, so I keyed up Rick Rungood's just overall match play preview, and this is what he'll hammer home, and this is what we'll share with our listeners too, is the idea that don't don't create a dead lineup off the bat, right? Don't pick players that are going to face each other too early in the tournament. There's 64 players to choose from. It's pretty easy to spread them out. Just grab a bracket, look at the bracket, make sure your guys are spread out. It's really easy to do. If you're doing a six-player DFS lineup, make sure that you can get all 6 players into the Elite Eight, right? That means 2 players from 2 quadrants and 1 player from each of the other quadrants. Also, ideally, you would make sure that you can get 4 players into the Final Four. Now, that can be a little tougher when you're dealing with salaries, but if you want to build an optimal lineup, this is the week where it cares less about who you pick and more about where you pick. So 6 players in the Elite Eight, 4 players in the Final Four, then just make your picks from there.
And I think 100%, of course, that's the way to go on a GPP style contest, or any sort of contest with a bigger price up top, because you have to maximize your potential from an earning standpoint. I don't know if I buy into this yet, but there is an alternative narrative out there from a cash game or double up standpoint that you only need to try to get, say, 4 into the Elite Eight, and then try to guarantee yourself somebody in the Final Four. And then if one of your guys wins the Final Four, or 2, if you get 2 guys in the Final Four, you're gonna cash in a cash game. I would be curious to see some statistics behind that, but just to speak that a little bit out loud, if you're looking at a bracket, the concept would be, you pick Ram, Straka, and Finau, for example, in the top right quadrant of 4, and then you do the same in the bottom left, and you hope, that you have 3 get out of their pool, and then give yourself a Elite Eight matchup, so you're guaranteed that Final Four spot.
I really like that idea, right? Because you don't need the to spread the guys out as much to have the optimal lineup at the end. You just need to get enough points in the knockout round. And to your
Correct.
point, you can kind of guarantee yourself a deep run. I have not tried that. I've always, and maybe that was my mistake last year, was in the cash entries that I did have, I still employed the sort of really spread out GPP strategy. Anything you can do to narrow your player pool in this event is a good thing, because there's so many different paths to victory here.
Yeah, and well, and the one thing you absolutely can't do is don't pick 2 people in the same pool. Like, even, if you have a lot of lineups, that can get confusing enough, especially if you're trying to hand build. But I'd be curious if there's some way anyone can run the data behind the concept of trying to guarantee yourself Final Four. But that's the thing. This event is so random. Even if you did that with Rahm, Straka, and Finau, for example, watch Ricky and Corey Connors and Adrian Morant come out of those groups, and then you're absolutely drawing dead. Where maybe you would have spread it out a little bit more with I don't know, Sahith or something, if you want to try to do that. So
and that's something that is also a good reminder, is that the top seeds have not fared extremely well at this event for one reason or another. It's a lot of golf. You have to really want to play a lot of golf, and these guys are also professionals. Like, the margin of difference in talent between who's the 64th person in the field, I think it was Davis Thompson, and Scotty Scheffler, or Davis Thompson and Sung J M. Like, it's not that much. And so, yeah, Davis Thompson can beat a lot of these guys on any good day that he has. And so what you end up getting is, what's the record for most number 1 seeds, most pod top seeds, or group top seeds getting out of their group? It's like 8 of 16 and it's happened a couple of years.
Yeah, it's happened twice, and last year included. The year before last year, there was 1.
Yeah. So you really do, like, if you're making DFS picks, now frankly, you can't even do a lineup with really more than 2 or 3 group top seeds, but you have to have a healthy mix of second or third or fourth guys in a group, because you know that only a handful of top seeds are going to make it to the knockout stage.
Last point on strategy before we hit the model, and I think that's a perfect segue into it, Mike, is you and I haven't talked about it yet. We both said, hey, we have a unique idea for 20 max this week. That leads into mine. I am going to do complete opposite of what I normally do. I'm going to look at our model and see who isn't getting love from a top seed standpoint. And that's actually who I'm putting into my core. So let's, for example, I'll take probably 2 to 3 top seeds as we talked about, some of the middle guys, and then just fit the cheap guys in that build that narrative, or where I have holes in my bracket, and look for those fades, look for those pivots, and just go with the concept of, hey, if they're top seed, they're a good golfer, and if they're not going to have ownership, that's where I'm going to be. That's not like how I normally like to play, but I think it makes way too much sense here.
I like that because there's so much randomness in this event that you might as well of just pivot for that type of model, for that type of contest, just pivot completely off chalk and just get funky and hope that funky happens because it's totally possible. Here's what I'm thinking. I haven't actually built this out yet, so I don't know. It's going to be a little tricky with salary. For cascading, so that's typically our approach. Typically, our approach is core cascading. For the listeners, a reminder, core cascading is where you build a 6-player core, and you're going to build 19 more lineups off that core by essentially replicating that lineup, taking out one player in each lineup, and then replacing them with another player that you like around the same salary. Here's what I'm thinking. Let's say that I have Scotty Scheffler in my core. For the 3 lineups that I build where I take Scotty out and replace with somebody else, I put in the other 3 people in his group. So then I'm basically picking 6 guys that I feel pretty good about advancing out of the group stage. But just in case I'm wrong on one of them, I swap them out with the other guys in their group. Now, depending on how much salary I leave on the table, this is going to be tricky because I won't be able to take, and I'm trying to think, let's just say I have, let's just say I had Justin Suh in my core, and I don't think I do. I can't take him out and put Max Homa in because that's a $3,000 salary jump, and I'm not going to be able to do that because I don't have that much salary on the table. But I will probably then just pick somebody else from the same pod to at least hold to the optimal lineup strategy. So what do you think about this?
I like it, especially when you with your pivot off your top guys. And the other thing it's going to do, for example, you take Scotty out and go down to Alex Noren. I don't know the salary difference off the top of my head there, but say it is 3,500. You're going to guarantee, I would say maybe not guaranteed, but you're probably going to have a unique lineup. And if it's a large format GPP contest, I think you need to do that. And then your example from Justin Suh, you might not be able to get to Homa, but if you give yourself enough leeway where you can go to Kisner, Taylor Montgomery, Mackenzie Hughes as your other options there, that still works well. Because then you're only, especially you're pivoting off Homa, you're staying away from, Decky, who may be getting a little bit of steam, and then you still have a 50% shot to get into the quarterfinals. And yes, Max Homa is a better golfer than Mackenzie Hughes, but in this event, I love a 50% chance.
So I'm curious to see how this works out. I mean, this is like that. It's a completely random event, and it's about who you play and when you play them. And I know, again, from my match play experience, guys get hot. The last thing you want to do is run to a guy that wakes up, it's going to go out and make 9-10 birdies in a round, and the next day he can shoot 3 over the next round, and it's just you played him on the wrong day.
I like it. I think I think between the two of us there, we have a great strategy too. Because the other thing I was thinking from a core cascading standpoint too, and pivoting to maybe some of the higher owns or the chalkier plays when possible. But I like your concept because it keeps you in that pot. It's going to make a little easier to build too.
You keep the optimal lineup strategy intact. Was the thought.
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't you turn to the bottle? And I know it's tough this week because we get all kinds of weird content. Guys don't follow necessarily their normal format. We do have a decent amount in, but
yeah,
any surprises so far?
I'm actually pleasantly surprised by how many contributors we have out there. And to your point, though, somewhere a little different. Just to hit on that a little bit, like Spencer over at Rotoballer, he kind of goes through group by group and picks his favorites. And there's some other ones like that. Some just gave betting content. So it's a little bit different from our normal DFS contributor standpoint, but we still make do and try to. The whole point here is who's getting the talk, who's getting the love out there, and where might people be looking. So Max Homa and Scotty are both tied at this point, almost at 50% of the mention share, from pretty strong contributors as well, pretty high in MPI, both in the 70s. Then we go to somebody who I've seen get a lot of steam is Tyrrell Hatton, 42% mention share, and to round out the top 5, Cameron Young and Patrick Cantlay at 31% mention share, but then also really strong in MPI for those two. None of those really surprised me, Mike, especially I think Cantlay wasn't someone that was on a lot of people's radars going into this week, but people seem to like his draw. But a lot of people
I mean, look at the pod that Cantlay's in. So his group is Harmon, KH Lee, and Nick Taylor. And then on the other side, Burns, Power, Adam Scott, who is a tested match play player, and Adam Hadwin. Like Cantlay, I think just got, and I think that's why he's getting so much love, is he got a really nice path to the elite. Doesn't mean he'll get there, right? We just spent 10 minutes talking about why this is such a weird event, but like he probably has the easiest path to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, and people liked Hatton too coming into this week because he's been playing well, and also along that lines, he also had. I mean, he has a great path to at least get out of his group. Just looking from the opening odds standpoint, he was 28 in his group. Russell Henley was 100. Lucas Herbert was 140, and Ben Griffin, who's been playing great, but he was 150. So there isn't anyone else below 100, and I think that's the only group that when the consensus odds open, that was the case.
There's a swell in Twitter right now that is trying to push all this money. Basically, like if Hatton wins this event, the sports books are going down, taken to the cleaners.
Yes.
Like there's so much money right now being leveraged on Tyrrell Hatton, which is kind of crazy. But he's been playing really great. So you and I both are very happy Rainmakers owners of Tyrrell Hatton cards.
Yes, and he was, because like DraftKings, for example, had his odds out there before him, so he had been at 40 prior to the odds resetting, and they lowered him 28, and I think he's well below that now. I haven't checked, but hey, I am also a Hatton card holder from a betting standpoint. But I just one last thought on Cantlay, and I think this just is a perfect example of what we're talking about. And we're not saying this in cash, but when it comes to GPP, I just don't see myself playing Cantlay, knowing that a lot of people are going to be there, and knowing that Homa is also going to be popular. That if you just take somebody else out of the bottom left, I think Taylor Montgomery's getting a lot of talk. Obviously, people like Kisner and match play. That's just a perfect quadrant to get a little unique in. Even if you want to take Scotty, Rom, Hatton elsewhere, and then save some money in the blue and roll the dice. I think that makes all the sense in the world.
All right, so do you want to plant your flag on a couple of guys this week? Giving a lot of love for Hatton not going Cantlay, but where else in DFS might you make a play?
That is a very difficult question that I have continuously been rolling around, going back and forth. But I think my tiebreaker I'm going to use this week is putting. Like, give me the putters. Like, what's more backbreaking than you being 10 foot away for a birdie, somebody being 30 foot away and rolling one in and making you make a 10-footer to have the hole when you think you have it. So that makes me lean towards the, Taylor Montgomerys of the world. Denny, I think is worth a look, especially in his quadrant over there. Maverick McNeely, who did not lose last year. He went 2-0-1, but didn't make it out of his group because they lost in the playoff. And even I think another top seed that won't get a lot of looks, but is Sam Burns, even though he kind of came back from the dead a little bit, but somebody else we know can get hot with the putter. So they're off sheet, and I said, hey, we're not looking at. I'm using the sheet more as this week as signaling where people might go, but I think that's going to ultimately be the tiebreaker for me. Is hey, who can get hot with the putter?
I love that take. I don't know that there's I don't know that there's one specific skill set that dominates match play, because there's something also about and I'll say this about a guy that I played a match against in a match play tournament who is in the field this week at the Kraus Putacana. His name is Thomas Longbella. He played at the University of Minnesota, and I lost to him 8-6 in a match. He was 8 under through the first 12 holes. And there was two things that stood out. One, he hit it dead straight down the middle every hole, 340, no question. And that was really difficult to stand and watch on those 12 holes. The second was he said, my sand play is this is walking down the first fairway. He told me that his sand play is the best part of his game. He then proceeded to hole out from the bunker for eagle on the first hole after I chipped it to like 3 feet putting for birdie. And so there are different parts of games, and depending on the matchup, that can be devastating to your opponent. But I do like the angle that you're exactly right, though. First in is usually going to have an advantage in match play, and you want to put the pressure on your opponent. So I love the idea that you can have a guy that's going to roll in 30 footers. And I maybe throw Lucas Herbert in there too as a guy that can get hot on the putter. But Denny, Taylor Montgomery charting pretty high in our model, and I think are both good underdog plays this week.
And yeah, we're going off script a little bit there from a betting standpoint. I do like Hatton. That's what I took. Like, if I'm not worried about ownership, I think that makes a lot of sense. Or when you're looking at it from a cash game standpoint. And I did take Cameron Young as well, in addition to Taylor Montgomery. So try to spread it a little bit. And there is also the T4s out there that this week, instead of from a play standpoint, that's I think is kind of fun. And if you're really looking to get crazy, I sent this to the group today. DraftKings is offering some great odds on just to get out of the group because it is so variable.
Mm-hmm.
If you really want to roll the dice and pick 8 group winners and parlay them all together, even if you take a bunch of favorites, I think it gave me like 10,000 to 1. So
there you go. There you go. Well, I think I mean I like those plays. I like Denny. I like Taylor Montgomery this week. I think from a stud standpoint, if you want to eat some chalk, I think we talked up Patrick Cantlay quite a bit. I think Patrick Cantlay, just as a person, is set up to do really well in match play. He is deliberate. He is slow. He is just going to kind of like make you bleed out if you can get a lead going. And so I do think he's the kind of guy that you like to have in this event. I also, as far as looking at guys off model that might be kind of fun to play, Kurt Kitayama obviously been playing pretty good this year. Kind of seems like a guy that's got a big chip on his shoulder. He's a small guy, but got some stature, and I think it would be kind of fun to see him continue to do well. He's in a pot. He's in a group with Finau, Adrian Meronk, and Christian Bezuidenhout. Like I don't know that I would be scared of playing Tony, who seems like the world's nicest guy. I think he's even rated in Golf Digest as like the nicest guy on tour. That's not like playing Kevin Kisner. And so I do think that you can, if Kitayama wants to come in and kind of like push some people around with his attitude, I think he totally could in that group.
I like that. I like that take. And I he's not someone I've heard a lot about this week. So
No,
I think there's something there.
we'll see. We'll see. What else? Anyone else you want to highlight from, I'm just looking at the model here to see who else maybe we haven't mentioned, but obviously there is some love out there for Jason Day. There is some love out there for Seamus Power. But your studs, Homa, Scheffler, Hatton, Young, Cantlay are the top 5 in the model right now. And I think you can't go wrong picking any of those guys, but you're going to have to find some differentiation elsewhere if you're playing DFS. Disclaimer, no one will be surprised if Scotty Scheffler wins this event again. Like, let's just not be surprised. And I'm probably going to play him in DFS because I don't have him in Rainmakers, and it'll just be a nice hedge. But like, we shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it would be boring. And I think people are trying to talk Davis Riley and a little bit Alex Norton into existence, but no one's talking about TK, a little Tom Kim out there, who was the number 1 2 seed, 17 seed overall, got drawn into his group. So I think if you're looking, I guess, somewhere else to get a little different there, but yeah, it's tough to go against Scotty. Just for fun, I filled out a bracket. Had to go Scotty in that one, for sure. Okay, Mike, if you just pick, I'm putting you on the spot, so I'll keep talking for a hot second so you can.
Okay.
But if you had to pick a final matchup, who you gonna go with? I'm probably gonna go. I think he's also catching a little bit of steam, but Victor Hovland, I just think is kind of to your almost of a counterpoint to your bulldog match play mentality. He just kind of seems happy go lucky sometimes, and you see him duff a chip and something like that, but it doesn't matter in that as much, right? Yeah, he loses that hole, and then the next hole he's gonna get a hole in one. That's just how he plays. So I think he's just someone that I think guys might think they have on the ropes and can come back. So I'm gonna say he's coming out of the left side, and we've talked a lot about it, and my bet money's on him. So I'm gonna say we got Vic and Hatton in the final with Hatton winning it, just because let's see those sports books go down.
I like that. I like that. That would be a fun final for me. I've seen a lot of this, and so I don't know if it's skewing my perspective, but a Max Homa, getting Max Homa in the final, I think would be really great. He was so much fun to watch at Quail Hollow in the President's Cup last year, and I feel like with this being this year's the last event or last year for this event, like I'd really like to see 7 rounds out of him on TV. And then I think Hatton is the play, and I look at that side of the bracket, and as far as the studs go, I mean, obviously John Rahm can do it, but I think Hatton's got the mentality to be there at the end of this thing. All right. Do you want to make any final comments on where your bets are? There's no tiers this week, but we can final comments to bets, and then we'll do our express recap of the Valspar.
Well, I think we need to hit on a name game, right?
Well, we don't. Oh, yeah, we do need to do that as a part of our preview. So, thank you. Last week's name game at the Valspar was Jordan's players and their favorite alcoholic beverages, their favorite liquors. So we had Steven Jägermeister, Ben Remy Martin, Will Gordon's gin, and Ben Taylor port wine. Kyle, you brought up the rear. Ben Taylor, we kind of threw that one in last, and you got sucked into picking him, and then he was the only guy that missed the cut.
That's pretty impressive out of that group. That 3-4 made cuts.
Yep. Well, so yeah, and Steven Jägermeister was leading after the first round, but Will Gordon's gin gives the listeners the W for the week, which Kyle just digs you and I just a deeper hole in trying to pass them on the standings. We are now 2 wins behind the listeners each. But you get the pleasure of the name game for this week at the match play.
So I like to come up with very fun ones. So I think we got a good little twist this week that I also my issue is I try to come up with these super creative ones and they don't try to work out very well, and then it's too late and then it kind of half-assed. But this week our name game is we're not actually going to know the name of the player we have until Sunday. So we're going to each pick a quadrant of the bracket, and then whoever comes out of that quadrant is going to be our player. So me, you, Jordan, and the listeners. And then it's just DraftKings points. So it should be very close. But then obviously, if you get the winner, you're going to probably, you're going to win unless somebody, I don't know, sweeps. Can you have someone win? Probably, right? Could you have somebody be the overall winner and not be the leader in DraftKings points?
That happens in stroke play. I would be surprised if it happens in this one.
I mean, if you had somebody clean up their group 3 nothing because you get finish points, I believe.
I take that back. I take that back. If I could see a possibility of the guy that finishes second that loses the finals match. Oh, but here's the thing too. do players accumulate draft points for the consolation match?
They do. Yeah. So I think you
Oh,
could have the only guy out of it is going to be the guy that gets fourth. I think you could
okay.
have the guy that's third. You don't get as much. So I think it could be interesting.
Yeah.
So
All right. All right.
your options are the top left. We'll call that the Seattle region, Pacific Northwest, top left of the
Okay.
United States. So that's the Scotty, Sungjae, Colin Morikawa, and Victor Hovland as your 1 seeds. You have the LA region. Fittingly, Max Homa is a 1 seed. You have Jordan Spieth, Sam Burns, and Patrick Cantlay. You have the New England region. John Rahm, Cameron Young, Tony Finau, and Will Zalatoris is your ones. And then you have Miami with Xander, Matt Fitzpatrick, Hatton, and Rory as your ones. So I'm going to go second. Mike, you can go first. And then the listeners get to go, and then Jordan gets the scraps, and he'll probably still
win. Boy, I think I have to take quad. I have to take quad 1. Oh,
so you're going
it's
Seattle?
Tough. I'm gonna take quad 1, and that's mostly just because of Scotty. Although I don't love the other options coming out of that if he's not there, but I think he's going to be in the Final Four, so I think he's going to play 7 matches.
I am going to take Miami, so that's Xander, Fitz, Hatton, Rory.
Mm-hmm.
I
think we should give Kyle quad 2. LA. Now give Jordan. Sorry.
All right, yeah. I think that's, and granted, you obviously you get somebody that's going to be the final, but I think of any region that's going to have a dark horse come out, I think it's the bottom left.
Okay.
And that gives the listeners the Rahm, Cameron Young, Tony Finau, and Willie Z, which I know some of our listeners would be very happy with that. We got some big Will Zalatoris fans. They get New England.
Nice. Well, I like this. I like this, Kyle. This is exciting. It's going to give you something to cheer for, regardless of who makes it out of the quad.
Yeah, I think it's fun, especially since it came up at the last minute. But we'll see when Jordan gets Mackenzie Hughes out of the bracket, and then he ends up winning the whole thing. It's going to annoy us, but it'll be fun.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Valspar a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about Valspar.
So Jordan texts on Sunday evening, and he says, "What? Adam Schenk bogeyed the last hole to lose the event?"
To be fair, it was his wife's birthday, so I don't think he was watching much golf.
I get that, and I don't know that he would have been sweating the Valspar on anyways, regardless of what he's doing. But it wasn't just a bogey. That wasn't just any bogey.
It was an epic finish. I think somebody, maybe it's Jeff Feinberg, one of the guys tweeted it. That was the best last 2 hours of Sunday golf. And there's been a lot of solid ones lately. I would say maybe not some great finishes, but a lot of super solid finishes I love. But the last 2 hours of Sunday golf without huge names that there's been in a long time.
Yeah. You did have to watch a little bit more throughout the week, I think, or at least pay attention to understand some of the drama. And if you've seen Adam Schenk and his story at all, he's a little older, journeyman, hasn't won. His 8-month pregnant wife is flying in on Sunday just to come watch the event. And so there was a bit of some storylines developing, and then obviously Spieth just doing Spieth-like things all week, gaining, a million strokes on the greens and just getting himself out of all kinds of jams. But Spieth did some of the shots he was hitting down the stretch. It was so cool to watch. And it really seems like he's got so much control of his golf ball right now that gives me, I mean, you start looking ahead to Augusta, it could be really exciting.
I mean, he does until he doesn't. His tee shot on 15. Yeah, and that's
the driver's never been his jam.
No, and that's what, I don't know. I love watching Spieth, and I know Yeah, I mean, the Jordan Spieth experience is a thing for a reason. It's just he does that off the tee, and then he makes a hell of a bogey, talks his caddy off of it. You know, caddy's trying to suggest he hits this hybrid after the drop. He's like, nope, I just want to get it up there where I can have a good look at the green. I'm gonna put it close and make a putt, and that's what he did. And
I
like
know.
just to go, I don't know, just to speak that into existence, I thought that was really fun to watch. And then Shank, man, you fell for him. And
You saw it coming. I mean, the guy made how many pressure pars down the stretch,
yeah,
and that's the sign, right? I mean, this is the age old phrase is, two things that don't last: golfers, dogs that chase cars, and golfers that putt for pars, right? Like he
yeah.
made some ridiculous par saves on 16 and 17.
It wasn't as late in the round, but you know what it reminded me of was Sam Ryder at the Farmers
Yeah,
early, right? Like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think he had, I mean, he made several 5 to 15 footers for par, and he made them all, but you just knew the impending doom was coming.
yeah.
But then I don't know. It was just from the human drama element. He hits that off the tee, right up against the tree. His reaction where he sees where it landed, but then how he pulled that together and hit the left-handed
Yeah.
shot, that was freaking nuts. And then gave himself a look, and then I hit the cup. That's all you can do on the putt. I
Yeah.
mean, granted, it was going 50 feet past, but still, like,
The dialogue where he says, like, I only think I can hit this ball 15 or 20 yards, and he ends up hitting it like 60 yards left-handed off that tree, and he hits it through the fairway, which I actually thought was a benefit because of where that pin was cut up on that second tier. I thought he could hit a wedge out of the rough and have it just release a little bit and not have to worry about the spin. And he ends up hitting it up there, and it rolls back down anyways. And so the other thing too that's tough about that putt is when you're in a position and you have to make like a 30 footer. you know a lot of people will say, well, I can't leave it short. I can't live with myself if I leave it short. I never gave it a chance. And I'm also of the mentality that if I have to make a putt of that length, I have to hit the putt that I think is going to go in. And so running at it, like you said, and he clanks it off the pin, and it was going 15 feet past. That wasn't the putt that was going to go in, and it's I'm not in a position. So much adrenaline's going, and no, he doesn't want to leave it 3 feet short. But I do think that like you don't have to press that hard when you have to make a putt. You just have to commit to the putt you think that goes in. But
good point. Good point. I
anyways,
just feel for the
so who
guy.
won? So who won the tournament? It wasn't Spieth. It wasn't Adam Schenk. It was some guy named Taylor Moore,
Yeah.
who's been a cut making machine this year. But
The only reason I have any care in the world about Taylor Moore winning it is because a lot of the PGA betting universe was apparently on him, which is weird because I feel like if there's a community play, I usually hop in as my fifth person on the card. And I had a spot this week to do that with Bradley pulling out. And I didn't hear that much talk about it, but then there was all of a sudden there was a lot of dancing on tickets on Sunday. So I don't know. But it always it's not fun when you miss out on community plays. So yeah, that guy won. But hey, it was a good week for the model overall.
it was a good week. We did have a bunch of guys in our top cohort there. The 25% mention share got and above. They 8 of 9 players in that pool this week made the cut, so that led to some good cash lineups. Except not for me, because I made the smart play of taking Steven Yeager out last minute and putting in Jonathan Vegas because I wanted to load more on the PMT times, and that was about a 10-shot difference on day one. So I struggled in cash, actually.
Yeah, yeah, the weather will get you more often than it helps, I would
Will
say.
help you.
So I
I
feel
would agree.
like we need to stop talking about that as much unless you're a high-end GPP player, Tambo type. But
Yeah.
we only had really the one hat, landmine, Adam Hadwin, that hurt a little bit, but a lot of the guys up there, Spieth had a lot of, north of 25%. Wyndham Clark had a lot north of 25%. Tommy Fleetwood, obviously JT, Justin Suh. Dylan Wu made the cut at 6,800 and finished 20th in DraftKings points, which is always really big for the model when we get somebody that low and price point that does well. So hey, I finally had it been 6-7 weeks before since I've had a decent DraftKings week, so I'll take it. And the thing you and I though talked about, Mike, is it could have been a much better week for both of us. We had some 6 of 6s that looked very live on Friday. Yours and Rainmakers, mine and DFS. But man, we've just had some bad Saturdays recently. Saturday's just been kicking us in the teeth.
And I will pump up if it had my Rainmakers lineup gotten, it was really good on Friday. And I showed you some screenshots of how good it was. Landon Solinsky over at he writes for Fantasy Labs and for DraftKings Nation had the gutsiest play of the week, the only mention of Adam Schenk. So I go out looking for a gutsy play, and I pick up Adam Schenk for $1.25 core in Rainmakers, plug him into my top lineup, and him with Kramer Hickok near, at the top of the leaderboard on Friday. I was looking real good. And then Kramer Hickok proceeded to shoot 8 over on Saturday and Sunday, and I tumbled pretty far. That was not helpful.
Yeah, Jaeger went backwards. Justin Slaw had a rough weekend. Mm-hmm. It didn't add up. And we should shout out to the two contributors that were on Taylor Moore, Campbell over at Fantasy Data and Spencer over at Roto Baller were both on him last week.
All right. Well, Kyle, I look forward. I know we didn't talk really Corrales at all. I'm not really going to have much in Corrales other than maybe a few showdowns just to keep the juices going, and then obviously a handful of Rainmakers lineups. But anything else for the golf week? This is gonna be a fun week. I'm coming back from vacation. I roll right into 6 days of golf. Basically, it's gonna be pretty fun.
Yeah, and I'm looking to the alt field a little bit too. I might throw on a couple items. We stated pay some attention to our Twitter account. We might get something out there. I did take Adam Long and Michael Kim, both over 45-1, over in Punta as well. Top 20s and first round leader as normal. So I'll pay attention both. It's fun alternate field, and I love that we have golf starting tomorrow, and we get to hang out and build here right after the show tonight.
For sure. All right. Well, you can find our content. Our podcast drops every Wednesday morning. It's available on our YouTube channel, Reading the Green, on any major podcast platform. Then, of course, follow our Twitter feed at RTG Podcast DFS for great content all week long. We'll be back in a week to recap the match play, the Corrales Punta Cana, and then preview the Valero Texas Open. See ya.